Mr. Schultz said to me, "I don't think your current bank balance is a true indicator of your level of intelligence." I was happy to hear that. He said, "I think you have plenty of talent and ability, and that you're much smarter than your bank balance indicates." And that turned out to be true. I was much smarter. My question to him was, then why isn't my bank balance bigger? And he said, "You don't have enough reason for accomplishing great things. If you had enough reasons, you could do incredible things. You have enough intelligence, but not enough reason." That's the key. If you had enough reason. In my years of study, I've also discovered this. Reasons come first and answers come second. Life has a strange way of hiding all the answers and disclosing them only to people who have been inspired to look for them, who have reasons to look for them. Put another way, when you know what you want and you want it badly enough, you will find ways to get it. The answers, the methods, the solutions will become evident to you. Hey, what if you had to be rich? Are there any books and tapes on the subject? The answer is yes. There are plenty of good ones. But if you don't have to be rich, you probably won't read the books or listen to the tape. What drives us to find the answers is necessity. So work on your reasons first, answers second. Now, what are some of the reasons for doing well? It varies from person to person. I'm sure that if you did a little soul searching, you could come up with a fairly strong list of reasons why you want to accomplish great things. There are personal reasons, sometimes uniquely personal reasons. Some people do well for the recognition. Some do well because of the way it makes them feel. They love the feeling of being a winner. That's one of the best reasons.
My mom this morning knew I wasn't feeling good. She goes, "Honey, you need to cancel that talk." I'm like, "Mom, I can't cancel on these people." It's like, "You work so hard. Why does it matter?" I go, "Mom, I'm helping them." She goes, "Oh, then you need to go." Because they're about service. Okay, so in your life, I'll go a little bit more here, you guys. In your life, if you combine understanding your mess can be repurposed, understanding I'm just like you, understanding the RAS, understanding changing your identity, understand bending time, you have a shot. Combined with this industry, combined with the information you're getting. But if you don't change your identity, do you know how many people I've had as friends that got wealthy that aren't anymore? More than I have that are still wealthy. Do you know how many friends I have who lost a lot of weight and got in shape and aren't in shape anymore? Do you know how many friends I have that had a great relationship and marriage that aren't in that relationship or marriage? Does this sound familiar, Tim? Do you want to know why? Their internal thermostat doing all that crap back. I ain't going back. I know where I am. I got to change that thermostat. By the way, you change the thermostat for your association. Change the thermostat. By the way, associations read books, follow them on social media, listen to their podcasts, their audios, all that stuff. Subscribe to my podcast. It's on iTunes. Listen to my YouTube. It's all free. I make no money. This is work. My podcast cost me about $1 million. I do it to help you. I'm here today to help you. I wasn't paid to be here today, but it's one of the only things I do to get paid anymore, to help you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to change your life. I spent the first 45 years of my life building my legacy and my dream, and I want to spend the second half helping other people build theirs. I feel like it's my calling and my mission in my life is to help people. It's sort of my form of ministry. I trickle God in there just a little bit, but not enough to be offensive. I give people the tools, skills, and inspiration to do it. I want to change the world. I want 1 billion people to change their lives and be a force for good. And let me explain to you why. I think the world is more screwed up and divided than it's ever been in the history of mankind. You're either a Democrat or a liberal or a Republican or a this or a that or black against white. If you in our country right now, evidently, if you're a white male, your enemy are brown people who are coming across our border, right? If that's not your enemy, then if you're a Christian, your enemy is a Muslim. If that's not your enemy, then if you're black, your enemy is white privileged males, right? By the way, really your enemy, if they're a Christian, white privileged, successful, married male, then they're really bad guys, right? And what we do is we enemy each other constantly in this world. We're more divided than we've ever been. People are broke. They're struggling. They want to blame somebody. The bottom line is people don't like their lives. They're not happy with their lives. They're looking for someone to blame. Politicians, Trump and Obama, I don't care who you like, they're both incredible at getting you to subtly blame someone else for your conditions.
Those are confidants, and every person, not just every leader, every person needs a few confidants in your life with whom you can be transparent, and then you won't be so lonely all the time. This man is in a cave because there's nobody walking with him. There's nobody who's got his rhythm. There's nobody who's got his pace. And then there are constituents. And this is the vast majority. This is the big category of what happens in church. Constituents are distinctly different from confidants. Confidants are for you. Constituents are for what you are for. They line up with the cause. They're called to the cause. They join join your church because you feed homeless people. They join your church because of your foreign missions. They join your church because you're going to heaven. They join your church because you believe in faith and you teach the word. They join your church. They are not for you now. They are not for you. They are for what you are for. They're going your way. They are for what you're for. What's the highway we came in on? What's the number? I-5. You're on I-5. They're on I-5. You're going in the same direction. They're going your way. They are for what you are for. They're not for you. And you have to understand that because they're attracted to the direction you're going in. But if they see a car that will get them there quicker, they will leave you because they were never for you. They were for where you were going. And if somebody else can get them there quicker than you, they will hop out of your car and dive into their car and go down the road because they were never attracted to you. They were attracted to your direction. And these are constituents. They are for what you are for. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with that until you mistake a constituent for a confidant. And you have a personal relationship with a public person and you think they are there for you and they were never there for you. They were there for what you were for. And then there are comrades. The third category is comrades. Now, comrades are not for you, and they are not for what you are for. They are just against what you are against. They're comrades. They are attracted to you because you have a common enemy, and they will be with you as long as the fight exists. But when the fight is over, they are gone. It's like the past election. I'm going to be very careful because we get in politics, we'll all be fighting. In the past election, when McCain and Hillary Clinton got together to attack Obama, McCain and Clinton wouldn't get together about nothing except they were both against Obama. Sometimes people only join you because you have a common enemy. They're comrades. They're with you in the struggle. And in the trenches, they're wearing your uniform. But when the fighting stops, you will be attacked in your own foxhole. If you bring a comrade too close to you, when your comrade gets through shooting at who you're shooting at, they will shoot you. Because they were never for you, and they were never for what you were for. They were just against what you were against. You'd be surprised at the people who fight against stuff, just all kinds of stuff, abortion, same-sex marriage, all kinds of stuff. They're against the same stuff, but they're not for each other. They join together in the fight. You, as a leader, have to know why people hooked up with you. Because if you misallocate a person into the wrong category, you will be brokenhearted and wounded and end up in the cave because you thought a constituent was a confidant, thought a comrade was a constituent. When the fight was over there, you got shot in your own foxhole. And I don't care what you hear about on TV, there is no such thing as friendly fire. A bullet is a bullet. Where in all fireability did we get friendly fire from? Get closer. Friendly fire. There is no friendly fire. You shot me. What is a friendly bullet? A bullet go in your hind end saying, I like you, you know? Woo, you know, what's up with that?
Because success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Who's with me on this, right? You make everybody else feel great. I mean, it's a horrible example. I hate it, but we all know an extraordinary spirit that took his own life just recently. Probably lit up more human beings than almost anybody alive when it comes to humor and joy. He made everybody else feel happy but himself. It's sad. You don't want that to be you. If there's any gift he can give besides his joy is the evidence of what you don't want to move towards. Nobody in this room is going to move towards that, but we do it at a little level. We die a little bit along the way by giving up what we really desire and believe in. And my goal is to make sure to see if we can wake that up. So, and by the way, fulfillment is as unique as there are people. Achievement, there's laws, right? You do this, money, there are laws. Your body, there's laws. We all have biochemical, special, unique identities, but there's certain fundamentals. If you do them in mass, you're going to be overweight. If you do them differently, you're going to be fit and strong. Same thing with money. But fulfillment is as unique as art. Art is what one person thinks is beautiful, somebody else can think is ugly, and that's perfectly fine. Have you ever gone to an art museum and you see this big red square and they go, $10 million. You go, you gotta be kidding me. $10 million for that freaking square? I'll draw you a square. But someone else, no, look at the texture, the taste, the flavor. I can taste the paint from here. They have a different way of being fulfilled, right? So those are the two kind of lessons of life. So this is what I'd like to do to help you with both those today if you want to play with it. Number one, let's take a look at what will give you the edge. Who's up for having a competitive edge in anything you do? Say I. And it's not BS and it's not positive thinking. It's something you can test because the edge is what's going to get more out of you. Second, I'd like to show you how to create a breakthrough. Who here has an area of your life where there's something you've struggled with for a while and you're sick of struggling with it and you're sick of making excuses and you want to actually change it today? Who's got one of those in your life? Say I. If you want to play full out, I can show you that. And the third element really affects the other two, and it's really the one that affects business and life, and that's the power of engagement. All of these are tied to engagement.
recreating you, and you have the power to do that. You can decide that you're going to change, that you're not going to be a wimp. You can decide that you're going to stand up to life. You can decide that I'm going to live each day as if it were my last. You have the power to make that decision. You can decide I'm going to work on myself and develop myself. I'm going to empower me. And all of these things that are happening to me right now, they're just temporary inconveniences. They're not stronger than I am. I'm in charge here. Next thing is separate what you do from who you are. That's what the guilt trap is about. See, a lot of folk won't let you forget what you used to do or what you have done, what mistakes you've made. All of us have made some mistakes in life. All of us have done some things that if we had them to do over again, we wouldn't do it again. A lot of things that if I had it to do over again, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done it differently. Well, it didn't happen that way. And that's what you call life. I didn't do it like that. Oh, you don't want me to live that down? How you want to keep on putting that in my face about what I did? Guess what? I'm not interested. That's what I did then. Won't do it today, so you are picking on an innocent man. Hello. So as you're in the process of reinventing your life, write a description of the kind of person that you want to be. What are the things that you must overcome? What qualities about your personality you know that you're going to have to change because those particular characteristics are liabilities to you? What are your assets? What are your strong points?
Your identity, your personal worth, the thoughts, concepts, and attitudes and beliefs you hold to be true about yourself are the thermostat of your life. They regulate everything. You have a money thermostat, a relationship thermostat, a fitness thermostat. And what happens in people's lives is they change the external results short term. No one's going to tell you this other than me. They start to change their conditions. I'm reading these books. I'm buying these properties. I've made a little bit of money. And your results begin to exceed. You start getting 85 and 90 degrees of results, but you didn't do the work to change your identity. You didn't change the thermostat your life is set at. And guess what starts to happen? I watch it over and over. You will thank me for this right here someday soon. The results get a little higher. They're 85. I closed a deal. I made a little money. I closed another one. I made a little money. I got this going. I've lost 20 pounds. Whatever it is. The results start to get higher than their set thermostat temperature. And guess what you do unconsciously? You don't even know you're doing it. You turn the air conditioner on of your life and you will cool it back down eventually to get it right back where you're comfy, 75 degrees. Same thing happens when it goes bad. You're broke. The water's turned off. The power's turned off. Your car gets repossessed. They dynamite your property. You find a way to turn the heater on and get it back. The key to life is not the knowledge you learn. You have to have that. Knowledge is not power if it's not applied. The key in life is changing that internal thermostat. And if you don't change that, listen to me. It'll seem coincidental. Yeah, something happened to the property. It was a bad rain. Construction costs went up. The market conditions changed. The interest rate went up. No. It's not coincidental. It's not. You cooled your life back down because you didn't do the work on who you are. The thing I have in my life is I associate with higher and higher identity people more and more and more in my life. That's what this group does for you. Begin to power of association. The people you associate with heat you up. If any of you that are religious, if you weren't fit, let's say you hung around someone in this room that's super fit and you were out of shape. You can't be around that person constantly and not start to eat differently, start to think differently. If you're a person of faith, and you're around someone who's a high thermostat temperature person of faith, you're around them all the time, you start to behave differently. If you're a man in the room, and you start to hang around guys who are true to their wife, and love their wife, and are faithful to their wife, and compliment their wife, and hold their wife's hand, they do all that stuff, they date their wife, you can't help but change your thermostat. Same with money. You don't think Sylvester Stallone and Phil Knight and John Elway and Tony Robbins had an impact on me?
But most of all, success is making your life what you want it to be, considering all the possibilities, considering all the examples. What do you want for your life? That is the big question. Remember, success is not a set of standards from our culture, but rather a collection of personal values, clearly defined and ultimately achieved. Success is your better life for you, the design you give it, the dreams you accomplish. Making your life what you want it to be for you, that is success. One morning at breakfast, shortly after I met Mr. Show, he asked me if he could see my current list of goals. He said, let me see your list of goals, and let's go over them and talk about them. Maybe that's the best way I can help you right now. And I said, I don't have a list. He said, well, is it out in the car or at home somewhere? I said, no, sir, I don't have a list anywhere. He said, well, young man, that's where we better start. Then he added, if you don't have a list of your goals, I can guess your bank balance within a few $100s, which he did, and that got my attention. I said, you mean that if I had a list of goals, that would change my bank balance? He said, drastically. That day I became a student of how to set goals, and sure enough, when I learned how, my whole life changed. My income, my bank account, my personality, my lifestyle, my accomplishments.
So their lifelong dream is to have the restaurant experience, but their idea of the restaurant is based by what goes on in the front. And then they get hired, and now they're working in the back where there's pushing and shoving, and you find out who comes late and who you can't depend on. And so-and-so's real anointed, but they also are a liar, and they get on your nerves, and they're egotistical maniac. Can I be real up in here this morning? And they're like shocked and flabbergasted and saying, oh God, I'm gonna have to leave this ministry. I never thought in the world. Baby, you signed up for the restaurant, but we hired you in the kitchen. And I'm just wondering, have you hired your customers? Because they find those type of people sign on and they come on to have these grandiose spiritual extravaganzas. They want to have this moment. It's like people who move to your church because you were in a conference, because they think the conference goes on every Sunday. And then they come back a few Sundays and all them extra people are not there. Israel Houghton is not singing this morning. It's Clarabelle Wilson. And she just a skipping and a singing, and she can't sing worth jack, you know? And they say, where is Israel? Israel is gone, baby.
And if you know the road ahead, you have an incredible power called anticipation. Anticipation is the ultimate advantage. See, winners, leaders anticipate, losers react. The reason you get beat is you don't know where things are happening, so you're reacting. Reaction is always stressful. And yet so much of our life is predictable if we just were to study it, not be caught up in our day-to-day. It's predictable the challenges you're gonna have in your relationships, or with your kids, or with your body, or with your job, or with your economics, or with your mother-in-law or father-in-law. These are predictable. And if you would anticipate these things and put a strategy in place, you could take it all out and have the quality of life that you deserve. In business, it's everything. Those that anticipate, those that lead, and then there's those that follow. The followers are the reactionaries. So the more we can anticipate, and you can't anticipate and lead unless you first learn how to lead yourself at a different level. And so I love to have you just see that if you and I can start to take control of our focus, and we can start to control the meaning of our lives and make something really that meaning that empowers us, because look, what's wrong is always available, isn't it? There's always an Ebola, a bird flu. There's always something that's going to kill the entire human race tomorrow on TV. And then there's your life. What's wrong is always available, and so is what's right. And you have to take control of that focus, because otherwise you become the follower and you get to live your life. Even though you're a smart person, we're all smart, but it's easy to get led astray by everybody else's focus, isn't it? And then all of a sudden let them create the meaning for us. And then all of a sudden we're settling for a life far less than what we desire or deserve. So my approach is really simple. My approach is to say, let's you and I, just for a few little time we have here. By the way, this to me is a little time, a couple hours, 2.5 hours, I guess, at this stage. Because kind of the minimum length of seminar I do is 50 hours, 50. And you go, are you kidding me? I don't like to hear myself talk. I like to see people do things so often they build muscle, not just thoughts. And so one thing I'm going to ask you to do in a few minutes is we're going to go from this passive mode that you're in right now into full engagement. Because if you get fully engaged, it's amazing what you can accomplish and do. When you're partially engaged, you get a little bit of result. When you're disengaged, we all know what you get, nothing. And we live in a society where most of us are so overwhelmed. There's so much information. We're not having any problem with information. We're being drowning in information, but we're starving for wisdom. And so we got to separate it out. And so one way to separate it out is I'd like to talk to you about 3 things that can help you increase your performance and your life. Because what I'm obsessed by and have been for 37 years is what can increase performance for an individual or an organization. But also I'm equally obsessed about what's going to make somebody fulfilled. Because who's had this horrible experience? Who here has ever achieved your goal and then your brain said, is this all there is? Who's had this experience here? Say, I. And that's worse than failing. At least when you fail, your brain can say, I can figure this out and do it again a new way. But when you succeed and you're miserable, you're basically technically screwed.
all around the world, you see this recurring theme in different cultures, and it's described in different ways, but exactly the same in theme. We have a force, an expression of this Wetiko that takes a reptilian form. And the cultures around the world, again and again and again, when they're doing their creation myths, then some kind of reptilian, lizard-like, snake-like entities are described. So if you take the biblical version, you have Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And Adam and Eve are symbolic of, first of all, what humans were like before what became known as the fall. What the hell was the fall? The way I've seen this is that there was once not something that you'd call human. It was a state of consciousness that was experiencing a world, a frequency band that was like the one we're experiencing, but on a much higher level of awareness, consciousness, frequency. So things weren't happening in dense matter and low, slow frequencies. They were happening on a high frequency. Things were much more ethereal. And that, I think, is what's described as this paradise that went before. And so Adam and Eve were cast out of paradise. What does that mean, I would suggest? They left that frequency level where what we now call humans were experiencing. A world of love, of joy, of happiness, of all the things that happen when you get into high frequency states where so much more is possible. And they fell, the fall was down the frequencies into dense matter. And the villain in the Garden of Eden that is said to have been part of this, or central to this, is the snake. People have to think symbolically. I mean, this is not a snake that can talk. This is symbolic of this reptilian group, not just one person, this reptilian group, these reptilian gods as they were perceived. And they fell down the frequencies, Adam and Eve, symbolic of what's now humanity, because they gained the knowledge of good and evil. What is good and evil? It's polarity. It's the polarity that we see in our reality now. That level that we fell from was oneness, it was unity. And we fell into the knowledge of good and evil, the knowledge of polarity, which is what this world is.
And there becomes an age, for some of us it's 18 years old, where the 19-year-old's almost exactly like the 18-year-old version. Their life, their results, their wealth, their happiness, their faith, their fitness is exactly the same. For some of us it's the 30-year-old's exactly like the 29-year-old. The 35-year-old's life looks so much like the 34-year-old's life. And this process of growth begins to slow down and in some cases stops altogether, where we're not replacing ourselves every year. I'm obsessed with birth, but I'm also obsessed with death. I have this belief that someday when I die, I want the Lord to say, well done, good and faithful servant. But I also believe God's going to introduce me to the man I was born to be, the destiny version of me, the man I was capable of becoming. And he's going to say, Ed, meet him. This is the man you were born to be. This is who I made you to be. This is the person with the experiences, the contribution, the memories, the feelings, the confidence, the emotions. This is who you could have been. This is the difference you could have made. This is what you could have done with your life. And when I meet him, my dream, heaven to me would be meeting him and we're identical twins. Hell would be we'd meet each other and we're complete strangers. Our lives were completely opposite directions. I didn't have the experiences, the moments, the memories, the differences I could have made. I didn't become the man I was capable of becoming. And that's hell to me, is meeting the destiny version of me and being total strangers. And so the only way we get to that ultimate version of ourselves is by replacing ourselves and growing all the time. This has to become an addiction for you. It has to become an emergency. For too many of us, we like to grow. We'll look into it. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, I should get around to it. It's true. And every time you don't make it an emergency, it's not a crisis. You're not in a hurry. It's almost like, if I don't do this, I will die. You never get there.
And the truth is, whether you know it or not, you are either growing or you are dying. And it may not feel like it all the time, just like you didn't know your skeleton, 10% of it replaced it last year. You don't know the last 4 days your whole digestive tract was replaced. But these processes happen. And so you are dying if you're not growing. We need to grow. You need to grow, and it needs to become an intention of yours. It needs to become an obsession of yours. You can't always acquire the things you want. You can't always just go get the car or the house or the relationship you'd want. But you are in control of acquiring the next version of you. And that requires being uncomfortable. That requires growth. Just like being in the gym. The only way your arms grow or your chest or your legs grow is by intentionally breaking it down and growing it back up again. This is true in our lives as well. You know, sometimes to grow, we may have to take a step or two backwards. It may get uncomfortable. You know, doing those last reps in the gym hurts. And I always remind myself, when it's hurting, I'm growing. If it's not hurting, I'm not growing. Well, we know that intuitively when it comes to physical muscles in our body. But it is also true of our identity, of our confidence, of our life. It ought to be hurting a little bit, at least, so that you know you're growing. Don't avoid the pain. Run towards it.
Listen to me, man. You have a great life in front of you. But your great life is in front of you. It's not behind you. What you did back there ain't got nothing to do with what God got for you. What you did back there was learn the lessons to get you to where you are at this particular moment right here. But what God got for you, do you know, man, that you can actually mess your life completely up? You can jack it all the way up and you can turn around and get it right. Do you understand that? Do you understand that you could have had a baby out of wedlock and still be all right? Do you know that you can be divorced multiple times and still be okay? Do you understand that you cannot have a degree and still be just fine? You wanna know how I know? Because I'm telling you what I know. I lost everything twice. I don't know if you've ever lost everything before, but I've been bottomed out twice. I done seen rock bottom 2 times. I've been through some walls up in here, man. I'm just trying to tell you, man, God is really with you. You ain't gotta believe me. You ain't gotta believe me. But keep doing it without God. Let me know how it worked for you. Matter of fact, write a book on how to make it without God. Because I wanna read it. I wanna read the first page. And then I wanna read the last page, because there ain't gonna be but 2. You can jack your life all the way up. God is in the forgiving business. You can make all the mistakes you wanna make or think you shouldn't make. God is in the get it together business. If you got dreams and visions, I got news for you. God is in the make your dream come true business. He did it for me, how he won't do it for you? A lot of y'all better than me. I'm just gonna flat out tell you. Most of y'all ain't done what I had to do to get to where I am today. You just ain't had to do this type of dirt. You ain't been homeless, so what you ain't got to scrap like me. Most of y'all didn't come, you're not old as me. I've overcome it all because I have a relationship with him. And you can listen to me and tell that I'm not a perfect person. I am not a perfect Christian. I have my flaws. I am a flawed human being. But guess what? You are too. You ain't got it all together. I dare you to say you do. I make a lot of money, man. But guess what? I ain't got it all together. I'm hurting. I'm hurting, man. Everybody tripping through something. Everybody, I don't care who you are, you going through something. But if you got God, you can make it. I'm just telling you this little piece of information. I don't see most of y'all most of the time. So you're sitting here, you're kind of looking at me a little bit odd. Why Steve talking like this stuff? I'm just trying to put you on game. Because let me tell you, all y'all want to be successful and you want to be happy, but you got to get there. It's a shortcut to getting there. The shortcut to getting there is the relationship with God. If you try it without him, you're going to fail miserably. You're going to sink, man. It's going to be ugly for you. Now, this is what you got to do. Identify your gift and get busy with it. God gave all of you a gift. Identify your gift. It is the thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. That's your gift. Get busy at that. If it's drawing, if it's teaching, if it's sharing, if it's caregiving, he put that gift inside of you. He didn't hide it under a rock or put it under the mountain or put it on the mountain somewhere. He put the gift in you.
make friends with people who want the best for you. I had friends who wanted the best for me and friends who didn't. And, you know, they were friends who, some of them were aiming up and some of them were aiming down. And if you have a friend that's aiming down and you do something that's aiming up, then they're generally not that happy about it. You know, they try to top your accomplishment with one of their own, hypothetical or real, or put down what you're doing, or offer you a cigarette if you're trying to quit and you've kind of done that successfully, or a drink if you've been drinking too much and are trying to stop being an alcoholic, you know. Or, yeah, they're cynical and bitter and devoted towards no good. And sometimes that's family members too. And sometimes it's even part of you, you know. But like you have an ethical responsibility to take care of yourself, you have an ethical responsibility to surround yourself with people who have the courage and faith and wisdom to wish you well when you've done something good, and to stop you when you're doing something destructive. And if your friends aren't like that, then they're not your friends. And maintaining your friendships with them might not even be in their interest. Be careful about whom you share good news with. And another was, be careful about whom you share bad news with. A friend is someone you can share good news with, you know. You go to them and you say, hey, look, this good thing happened to me. And they say, look, I'm so happy that that happened to you. Like, way to be. And they don't think, God damn it, why didn't that happen to me? And like, you know, you didn't deserve it. Here's a bunch of reasons you're stupid and why it won't work. It's like, that's not helpful. Carl Rogers, who's a psychotherapist, he had this idea that what he would manifest towards his clients in therapy was unconditional positive regard. And I've always had trouble with that because you don't treat your children, for example, with unconditional positive regard.
You mean so no matter what someone says, you're saying, yeah, that's a good idea?
Yeah, well, that's why it's tricky. Well, what he didn't articulate it, I think, as well as he might have. What you want to do is, for your child, is that you want the best for the best in them. That's what you want. And that's what you want from people that you surround yourself with. Now, they'll hold you to a high standard if that's the case, right? Because whenever you degenerate in any of the multiple ways that you're likely to degenerate, they're going to like whack you on the back of the head and say, you know, clue the hell in. You know, you're demeaning yourself. You're less than you could be. And there's real judgment in that, and it's harsh, you know. But with friends, it's the same thing. You want friends. They're not friends if they're not these people. You want friends who, when something good happens to you, that's good for you, right? They're happy about that. They're not like all bitter and resentful underground and like saying horrible things behind your back and telling you how they did something that was better and trying to drag you down. It's like, that's not helpful. And then when something bad happens to you and you go to them and you say, look, this terrible thing happened to me. First of all, they don't try to top it with some like horrible thing that happened to them because they don't have the patience to listen. And second, they're not secretly gloating about the fact that catastrophe finally befell you. It's like they're actually hurt by it. And that chapter is an injunction. It's like, take a look at the people that are around you. And if they're not on the side of what's good for you, then walk away. Because, well, first of all, that's best for them too. If you put up with that, all you're doing is enabling it. It's like, well, it's okay that you mistreat me in a way that's harmful to me and everyone else. It's like, actually, no, that is not okay. It's not the least bit okay. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try to help someone when they're down. That's a whole different issue.
What if it's your family? So you know how you say like walk away, right? Do you still walk away from your family?
You do if it's necessary.
Yeah.
There's lots of different ways of walking away. Sometimes someone's on an incorrigible path. Yeah. Like, there's just nothing you can do. You know, maybe they're aiming down and they're bitter and everything they do is to produce misery, virtually everything. And you have to detach yourself from that. It's like, I always think about it from the perspective of a lifeguard. So if you're training to be a lifeguard, one of the things that you're trained to do is to approach someone who's drowning and panicking. And the way you approach them is you put your foot out between you and them and you push forward with your hands with your foot out. And you basically tell them if they're flailing about, you say, look, I'm here to help, but you have to calm down. And then if they cling to you, like in panic, you push them away. You think, well, that's pretty damn cruel because what if they drown? It's like, yeah, what if you both drown? That's like not helpful. You're there to rescue them. They take you down. You're both dead. It's like fail, right? It's like, well, it's the same with someone in your family. It's like if they're on a downward path and you've done your best, you know, you've made your efforts, and they're not paying attention. They're not changing. They say, yeah, well, I'll quit doing this. Yeah, I'll quit doing this. They tell you the same story over and over and over. It's a downhill path. You don't trust it. At some point, first of all, you stop offering your words, if you're offering words of wisdom to someone in the genuine attempt to help and they treat that with contempt, then shut up, because you're demeaning your words by throwing them away. You think, well, how do you help someone who's aiming down? Well, sometimes you help them by walking away and saying, look, you're aiming down so hard, despite the fact you're my brother, man. It's like, this is killing me. You're aiming down so hard, I'm not coming along with you. And the reason I'm not is to tell you in no uncertain terms that what you're doing is so terrible that I will even violate our kinship to oppose it. And maybe it'll take them 10 years to wake up to that, And so that can be the case because, people often have to be hit so many times before they'll learn. You see that especially if someone's addicted or otherwise pursuing a pathway that's like seriously downhill. So why should I think that you're actually trying to change? You tell me the story that you use to justify your own idiocy to yourself. And then you tell it to me and you demand that because I'm compassionate, I accept it and therefore validate your excuse. It's really hard not to get tangled up in that, right? Because if someone who's really in rough shape is telling you about why they're suffering, first of all, they're probably about half right in their story. But some of it's justification and excuse and blaming and all of that, failure to take responsibility. It's really hard to stand up and say, no, I don't buy that. No, you're wrong about that. You have to be a brutal bastard in order to do that. But hey, sometimes like surgery is brutal, right? It's brutal. And so this chapter about, only making friends with people who want the best for you, that's a brutal chapter, but it's right, unfortunately.
Here's how you know if someone's your friend. You can tell them bad news and they'll listen. They won't tell you why, you're stupid and why that bad thing happened to you and how something worse happened to them once and, derail the whole conversation. You can actually tell them bad news and they'll listen. So that's a good thing. And then this is a weirder thing. You can tell them good news and they'll help you celebrate. And that's a really good way of deciding who you should have around you, because if you have someone around you, something good happens to you and you're kind of afraid to even admit it because, God, something good happened to you. You let that be known and it'll certainly be taken away. So, you come out and you sort of tell someone half-heartedly that something good happened to you and they give you a whack and then talk about, the great thing that happened to them 3 years ago, or worse, the great thing that happened to someone that they knew 3 years ago. It's like, go away from that person. They're not helpful to you.
You are obligated not to associate with people who are trying to damage the structure of being. Your being, the family being, social being, all of that. It's like, no, wrong, move away. And you think, well, that's cruel. It's like, it's not cruel. You're sending a message. This sort of behavior is not to be tolerated. Plus, if you make a success out of yourself, let's say that you develop your character, well, then you're a example. And at some point, maybe that's what that person is going to need, is an example. Maybe they'll hit bottom and think, oh my God, I'm not on the right path. It's like, there's an example I could follow. So, and you can't justify it by compassion. And the other thing, people don't exactly understand that it's okay morally to choose people that are trying to help you be better and to shy away from people who are going to drag you down. So you're not morally obliged to go down with someone else's ship. Now you think that's pretty harsh, pretty rude. You can't abandon a friend in need. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it is appropriate for you to look at your social surround and to make decisions. If you have a person who's hurting you and who won't quit and who's pulling you down, it's like, that is not necessary. You are not obligated to do that. You go with people that are trying to elevate you.
You got to surround yourself with people who want the best for the best part of you. You can hang around with weasels and losers that are trying to pull you down to justify the fact that they're spiraling downhill as well. And the upside of that is you don't have to have any responsibility and you can all whine about how wretched life is, so that's pretty attractive. But I would say it's also a bad medium to long-term plan. And so it's acceptable and desirable to try to surround yourself with people who are facilitating your development.